We have our first artist, our first guest. I am so excited to introduce her. We have Georgia.
Hey,
Hello.
what's up?
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me.
I think you're our first actual guest from the UK on our show.
Oh, no way. Wow, I feel very humbled. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for joining. I know it's evening for you there. So
Yeah,
I'm glad you were able to do this with us.
yeah, pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
So how's your weekend? How have you been doing? How have you been holding up in all of this craziness?
Well, I mean, I live in London, and we're sort of coming out of lockdown now, so we're just easing out of it. And I guess like everyone around the world, 4th of July was Independence Day. um, but I actually escaped London because London got pretty hectic, pretty mad what was going down here, and I escaped to the seaside and had a bit of a time by the beach and swam in the sea. Nothing like the west coast of America, but you know, you can get in freezing cold water and splash around and try and pretend you're in somewhere hot and magical.
Exactly. It's our water's cold out here too. Don't get it twisted. Our weather's just warmer, but the ocean is freezing. We were also not allowed to go to the beaches this weekend, so they closed everything down
Oh,
for us.
really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Oh,
Just I
dear.
think to like manage the crowds and all of that because I'm in California in LA and we're
Cool.
kind of going backwards. Like we opened
Oh,
things up
really?
and now like I saw pictures from London, like everyone out in the streets and the park. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we did that, and now it's
Uh,
sad. So
Yeah, I think probably I wouldn't be surprised if London goes a little bit back. But we've been shut. You can't keep the people locked down forever. The people need to have. I mean, we've been having illegal raves and stuff like that, and it's hard for people, to suddenly forget part of their lives, and it's easier said than done for some people. So I just hope that we can, yeah, I hope that we can move forward instead of moving back.
I'm with you. I think it's also hard with social media because I think it's hard when
For
like even if
sure.
you're trying to do the right thing, it's like you see other people. Like if you didn't know anything was happening, it
Yeah.
would almost be easier. You know what I mean? But then
Yeah,
you
totally.
know, and you're trying to like be good, and you're like, ah, but like I just want to go to my friend's house. Like we all, we're all hitting that point now too, and the weather's getting nice and
Yeah, I know it's definitely reaching a point now where it feels like the people want to,
break
just
out.
break out. Yeah.
How have you been doing with like music and stuff? Like I know it's been, some people have been saying it's like a very creative time. Some people have just kind of been performing and doing live streams. Like how have you been creatively during all of this?
Well, I'm here actually. This is my home studio. I've got a studio. I'm very lucky in the back of my garden in here in London. So I feel very fortunate that I was on tour basically promoting the new record Seeking Thrills, and then suddenly obviously it happened and so I was like, okay, no more live shows, get back to your yard. And so it kind of forced me to get my studio back together again and just get writing and collaborating with more people. And at first I found it quite challenging. I don't really like isolation. I think I like the romantic idea of isolation, but when it's actually isolation, I think I don't actually do too well with it. So it took me a while to adjust, and now I'm just like fully in writing mode, and it would seem that I'm just kind of writing for the next record, it would seem. And even doing remixes, and I've been making a lot of techno, um a lot of techno and house at the moment. So hopefully there'll be some releases, I think, soon. So that's yeah, it's exciting.
That's awesome because for everyone it's been very different, and I think also over
Cool.
the this has also become a much more extended period of time, so we've all kind of had to figure out
For
what
sure.
how are we going to be, make ourselves happy and be happy in all of this. And I mean,
Mm.
you prime example of an artist, you know, in the middle of a tour, in the middle of an album, and then, you know, this all kind of came crashing in and changed everything.
Yeah, yeah. It was hard to adjust, but actually, the thing is about my record is that the record is inspired, or is about kind of thinking about yourself, and you know, in these very busy lives that we have. I just thought, you know, you can look to house music and techno music and dance culture as a way of checking in on yourself, and it's all about your and then Corona happened, and suddenly Seeking Thrills became a soundtrack for people because they suddenly had time to do that. They
Yeah.
suddenly had time to feel inspired to you know, reflect on their lives, on their careers, on you know, all sorts. And actually, I've had so many, like, thousands of messages every day on my Instagram, just being like, I'm converted my kitchen into a dance room. I've got the bathroom as a dance floor. It's like, so actually, I found it quite inspiring to see that actually, you know, the campaign hasn't just gone. It's actually still rolling, and it feels really, that feels really amazing, actually, you know.
That's been incredible. I mean, really quickly before we get into it, I know there's a lot of people tuning in. They want to, you know, talk to you. So I just want to open this up to say, ask questions, you guys, in the comment section. We have people going through reading them. So please ask Georgia any questions you want about the album, quarantine, whatever. We'll get to them. So make sure you do that. I just wanted to make sure to point that out. But I want to talk about, you know, your album, Seeking Thrills, which, by the way, is really a great fucking album.
Thank you very much.
I really liked it a lot. You've been, you know, we have a team in London. My boss is based in London. We've been talking about you quite a bit because there's been so much buzz about, you know, about you. I was actually really looking forward to seeing you in LA, but
I know.
2021, girl, 2021.
2021, it will happen. It will definitely happen. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what I think has been interesting, and you know, and what I've kind of seeing in the music space is the dance community has really kind of like come together in this space. Like, I think, you know, you guys, I mean, you've been doing them too. Like, and I say you guys, and I'm just like, you know, you
Yeah, for sure.
but like you guys have really taken advantage, I think, of the live space and, like, you know, performing live streams and being able to DJ and doing, you know, and collaborating and, you know, the whole thing. What is, you know, a piece of advice that you would give to other artists? A lot of people that are watching, a lot of the kids that are watching now, a lot of kids on SoundCloud are also creators. You know, they're at home. And do you have any piece of advice to give them?
I just think get fucking creative. Like, just I went mad on Amazon. I started buying, like, you know, smoke machines and disco balls and weird sort of silver foil. I turned my whole studio into like silver foil spaceship land. And you know, I think my piece of advice is just like, take advantage of this time and just get mad creative and just try some shit. You know, there's no that's the kind of beauty of the internet and where we're at the moment. It's just people just want to have a kind of visceral explosion in their eyes. They don't really want to, you know, there's no one's really judge it. It's just like, come up with some new shit. So I would just say, just get creative.
I absolutely love that. And I also love that you've been shooting a lot of your stuff in like that fisheye kind of like that's like a prime example, right? Of like
totally. I mean, I got that, I think it was about £3, that's £3 on Amazon. It's like so cheap. I just looked for all like this cheap shit, and I was just like, let's just get creative. So I would really just say, just do it. Don't think about it, just do it.
You know what, I absolutely love that advice. I think that is the best advice you can give, especially right now. You know, it's like you know, this is the time to just try some shit. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If you go live and shit's wrong, like, everyone kind of gets it. You know what I mean? It's not like you're standing on stage in front of 20,000 people and your audio cuts out, you know?
Right. Exactly. And actually, also, I found that we did a bunch of live streams where there were mistakes. Like, I had this one live stream where I was sort of premiering the Black Madonna remix. And I was going to try and do it live, and I had Maria on the phone trying to like dial her in for an interview, and just everything just suddenly went down. The audio went down. But I got the most streams at that particular moment, and I think it's just because people are like, this is natural. This is it. This, you know, because people don't get to see the behind the scenes when you're performing live. I mean, there's so much shit that goes wrong, like, you know, it's unbelievable. So I think actually people enjoy the kind of messiness of it in a way.
I completely agree with you. I think it's just people don't, and I think a lot of times your fans, like, they don't get to see those moments. They don't get to see them. It's very real. It's very raw. It's so relatable. You know, normally it's, you know, so I think I'm with you on that.
Right.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about just, you know, about how musical you are. First of all, I am just like in awe of, you know, and especially these days, it's just females who are up there just doing their thing and owning the stage, and you are one of them. So
thank you very much.
like, it's just, you know, it's even on our show, you know, it's like, you know, we've had a couple shows and, you know, there hasn't been any girls on, you know, and so, you know, it just happens with music where it kind of ebbs and flows, but I am just, you know, to see a strong female who not just sings but like plays instruments and all of that. Like, how did you get into music and the drum? I mean, drums is your thing, right? Like, that's, at least that's what yeah,
no, it is. I mean, I come from my dad is a musician. He was in quite a famous dance band in the 90s. They were called Left Field, and they were kind of part of the whole UK rave scene. And as a young kid, I sort of got exposed to that from a very early age. And in fact, Left Field used to bring me up on stage when I was sort of like 4 or 5. I was like their little mascot, and I just kind of, I guess I got introduced to the world of music from such an early age, and I just loved it. I just immediately knew what I wanted to do, and I guess my mum is, you know, she plays Joni Mitchell and kind of all this kind of 70s music, whereas my dad plays like reggae and kind of techno and acid house and sort of so I've had a kind of very diverse musical upbringing as well, and I think I've just always loved this, like how sound is created. So from when I could do it, I just picked up, you know, instruments and wanted to try and emulate those sounds that I was hearing. The drums was definitely the first instrument I sat behind and could just do it, you know. It didn't feel like I was forcing something. It just felt very natural to me, and I still remember that feeling of sitting behind a kit the first time. It was just kind of so liberating, and so I continued to do that. And then when I hit my teens, I was obsessed with Prince. And Prince and Kate Bush, basically. I was completely obsessed with them. And I kind of got into the process. I bought a 4-track recorder and started to learn how to actually record what I wanted to play and what I was hearing in my head. And so from then on, I just also began a love of like sound recording and how you actually record sound. So it's been a kind of, I guess you could say, I've been slightly geeky throughout my life. You know, I'm into technology. I'm surrounded by synths. I love collecting old synths. I love guitars. I mean, Simmons. I love the 80s. I've got outboard gear. I'm just one of those people, I think, that just is kind of obsessed with all of that type of stuff. I'm into the process as much as I'm into actually releasing records and promoting it. I like the process. It's part of, I think, who I am. And so that's a big part of the whole kind of Georgia thing, really, is that it's about moving on and developing through each record and hopefully improving and, you know, seeing where it goes, basically.
I love that. I've interviewed a lot of people, Georgia, over the years, and that is probably one of the best ways, like, and the best things that I've heard about people talk about music, and the way that, like, it's in your blood. I mean, forget, you know, yes, like your father was in music, but it's like there are certain people that you're like, no matter what, if you would be doing this in some capacity, like this is in, you know, whether you were working, you know, if you were just working at the, you know, Guitar Center and like helping people, that for you would just be thrilled. You know, I love that. It's just so a part of your soul. You can feel it. You can feel it. You know what I mean? That's so cool. I mean, there's so many people, you know, that are watching and tuning in, and you know
Yeah.
that, and on SoundCloud that are creators too. Like people want to hear how you make it, you know, like especially in this dance space. Like people want to hear, like, let me ask you, like, what is when you start writing a song and you start kind of getting it, like, where do you go first? Like, how do you start that whole process?
I start it, usually it comes from one of my synths. So I'll usually, before writing a record or beginning the process for writing new material, I'll actually buy a synth, and that will kind of inspire where I kind of take the melodies and take the sounds. So at the moment, I've just bought. I mean, I'm obsessed with the 80s. I mean, anyone who's heard my music can probably hear that I love the 80s. And so I've just bought this synth that's from 1981. And so I sit there and I'll spend, hours just coming up with sort of melodies and lines on the actual keyboard. And then that will just kind of kickstart lyrics, melodies, drums. I'll just kind of, it'll just spark that kind of, okay, I'm taking this there, and then I'll record it. And then once the idea comes, it just flows very quickly. And I'll try and get, all the elements down, where I hear the drums going, where I hear the bass, where I hear the keys, where I hear, weird samples. Often I'll make weird samples out of, like, I don't know, like a rock falling on the floor, and that will kind of make part of the drums. It's kind of, it's a bit of a weird process in that it just kind of bleh, it's like bleh, but it usually starts from a synth or some kind of keyboard. Yeah.
I'm fascinated by it all. Like I have no musical like talent in my body, but I'm fascinated by it all. Do you do a lot of this by yourself? Do you work with, like, collaborate with others, or like what's your like normal process?
No, I'll start all the demos here in this studio myself, and then I take it to my sort of we kind of co-produce it and mixer. He's called Mark Ralph, and he's very successful. He's kind of like, got his fingers in a lot of different pies in music, and he's actually local. So I'll do all the demos here. I'll get them to a high standard, and then we'll go into Mark's and just like fucking rip it all to shreds and go, that shit, replace that. So it's a kind of process that's it's very rewarding, but it's long, and you have to be very critical, and it's a really sort of in-depth way of working, but it's just the way I've kind of developed it now. But it depends what I'm working with. Like, I'm working with the Black Madonna at the moment, and we'll just be kind of, in here and in, I don't work with a lot of collaborators, but I've definitely, like, I did the Muramasa track. I went and sung with Alex, and then I did a Gorillaz track. So I just went in the studio with Damon, but in this studio, it's kind of like my zone. So it's, I'll just kind of get into my own headspace here, really.
That's awesome. I did want to talk about the Gorillaz track because I thought, how fucking cool.
Yeah.
How did that come about, or how did you kind of get connected with them and everything?
Well, I went to South Africa with Damon with a project called Africa Express, and it's a really cool organization where they take a bunch of Western producers, and we go to Africa, and it's a country in Africa, and we'll just kind of work with local artists and also, like, amazing artists, and we'll kind of do this collaborative album for just a week. And it's kind of meant to just break down all boundaries. You're not meant to go with any preconceived ideas. It's just like blur. So I met Damon and everyone there, and then me and Damon have just become really close friends, and he's become a bit like a mentor. So we then kind of, just he called me one day and just said, come in, well, I've got a track for you. Do you want to come and play some Simmons on it? And I was like, yeah, it sounds great. I mean, I'm such a big Gorillaz fan. I was, so for me it was a real big moment. I never really thought that would happen, but I'm really chuffed with the outcome, because it's also Peter Hook from Joy Division, and New Order. Yeah. So it's like it was just like, what? I was in the studio
as like a fan of the 80s, but like also just from, like a dance, like in the community and in the space. Like I just thought, like, how freaking cool.
Yeah.
amazing.
I know. I mean, it was Peter Hook. He's an absolute legend, you know. And yeah, I had to stop myself from fangirling a little bit.
Yeah.
I was like, be cool, be cool.
But it's so cool to have those moments, and I think it speaks volumes of like just the work that you're doing, and like people are loving kind of like the music you're putting out and the vibe. And I think
Right.
one of the things that I really loved when I was researching you and everything. Dance floors are places to feel rather than forget, I think is like a quote that you had said at some point. So when I heard that and I read that, so, and I'm just going to say it again for the people because I said that really fast, but it's dance forces are places to feel rather than forget. And I thought, like, what, I don't know, I just like, I felt that on like, from like in my core.
Yeah, yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, the dance floors, I've seen, I mean, people talk about, you know, techno and acid was made in America, in communities, black communities in America. And these were places where people could express themselves and be who they were outside from normal society. And these were safe spaces. There were spaces where people could be whoever they wanted to be. You could be gay, you could be straight, you could be bi, you could be trans, you could be whoever, and you were accepted. And I feel like it was a place, you know, that's where the dance floor heart came from. It came from those communities in America, specifically Detroit and Chicago and New York, of course. We can't forget New York. But that spirit really came over to the UK. We really embraced that because in the UK in the 80s, it was a really hard time. We had Margaret Thatcher, we had, you know, the poorer were getting poorer and the rich were getting richer, and communities were really segregating. And suddenly what you had was this music that just united everyone. It didn't matter who you were, what background you came from. You just went to a rave and you mixed with everyone. It was a unifying moment. And I feel like it, rather than forgetting your past, it was about embracing your nostalgia. It was about embracing who you are and who you can be, and who you want to be. And so I feel like that for me is the most important thing about dance floor culture. And I think that's what's permeated across the whole of the music industry, actually, even, you know, from hip hop to, you know, rock to whatever. You know, the dance floor is a place of definite, like, emotion, and emotion comes from everywhere, and you just embrace it rather than forgetting it and rather than trying to suppress it. It's a place where you let it go and you let it be. And dance music is a great, you know, genre for that. But also, whatever, the club is a great place for that, and whatever genres you hear there. But that's what I kind of meant from that quote, really.
I absolutely loved that. I was hoping you would kind of get into it a little bit, and I'm so glad that you did, because I think it just really hit me. And I think, like, also from, you explained it so well, of just like, especially dance in general has been a community where you could just be yourself, and it's been accepting, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the most soul touching thing I've seen from you know, the whole what's going on, Black Lives Matter, and was actually a video that someone had taken in Detroit, which was the people marching to the sound of techno. And for me, that just was like, that, you know, people don't know about techno, they don't know about acid, that house. And it was, you know, it came from America, from black communities. And I've always been taught to respect that and to know about that. And, you know, and that for me, I just, you know, I've always wanted to have a sense of authenticity and respectfulness with sound, and know the history of it. And so yeah, I think that was a real touching moment for me. Yeah.
I think I think that that's awesome. And to even just talk about that, just one kind of thing, you know, Aluna from Aluna George has kind of made a big call to action about that in the space of just like, you know, that the history of dance, you know, a lot of people don't know that it started within like the black culture and black community.
Of course, absolutely.
You know, but also, you know, she made a big call to action to all of the, you know, not just creators, but all of the editors of playlisting and all of that kind of stuff, to say, you know, don't forget about us. Like, we are here. You know, she's been just been saying that, like, you know, she'll go to a festival, EDM conference or whatever, and you know, she's like, I'm one of like 5 Black people performing, maybe, you know. So it's been very interesting. So it just kind of fit with what you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of I've been, you know, a lot of EDM DJs. There are great EDM DJs, but there are also DJs that don't know the history of what they're playing. And that, for me, I remember being in America last year talking to someone who was an EDM DJ, and I was actually explaining to him where techno came from. He had no idea. I was like, what? You know, but I do understand that, you know, sometimes you don't, you know, not every artist knows where everything comes from, but I do think now it's time to really recognize, you know, just because also they laid the foundations for us, and also they were brave and they spoke, you know, they just did it, you know, and it's, we owe a lot to them as well. So yeah,
I think you've done a really good job, and you know, of really really admiring and giving credit to where credit is due. I think, like, throughout everything I've read, you know, different interviews, like, you know, you always talk about it and kind of give credit back, and I think it's so important, you know, in the, you know, especially in the dance space where people don't know where a lot of this came from in the history, and it's not that old. It's just, you know, it's not talked about a lot. I think it's kind of been like a piece of music history that's kind of been skipped over a little bit.
Of course, it really has. It's really true. I think it has.
Yeah.
And you know, it's had such a major impact on popular music that actually without sort of Kevin Saunderson and, you know, Inner City and you know, create, you know, all the Detroit people, you wouldn't have had Madonna, you know. It's like Madonna would, you know, and Madonna was making techno music. That's how she called her pop music. So I've been really fascinated with that point where pop music fuses with dance music, and you get now the sound which is in the mainstream charts, you know. So
incredible. Georgia, I could talk to you literally all day long. I know you know, but we are over time. We have a couple other guests to get to, but before we leave, first of all, I just want to tell everyone to make sure they check out your album, Seeking Thrills. It's on SoundCloud. It's on all other DSPs as well. Check her out. But also, before you leave, I play a little game with everyone. It's 1 minute. We're going to put on the clock. It's called Rapid Fire. And I'm going to ask you questions. We're just going to get to know you a little bit more. We'll leave everyone on this note. Fast questions, fast answers. You ready?
I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
Okay. 1 minute on the clock. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how cool are you?
Oh, I don't know. 5?
Netflix and chill or hit the club?
Hit the club.
Favorite thing to cook during quarantine?
Oh, summer rolls.
Do you have a favorite snack?
Oh, peanut butter.
What's the song that you like to listen to that really gets you like in a good mood?
You Needed Me, Rihanna.
Good choice. What's one of your favorite artists to listen to?
At the moment, I just love Haim. I think that album's honestly the best record of the year. So I'm Haim.
Me too. And my final question: are you do you drink, smoke weed, or are you sober?
What? I'm sort of sober, really, but I mean, I do drink. I'd say sober drink.
Good answer. Good answer. Thank you so much. And by the way, that Haim album, I have to agree with you. You guys, check.
Amazing.
So freaking good from that. Probably the best album they put out.
Definitely.
And if you have never seen them live, you have to. Probably some of the best girl rockers I've ever seen hit the stage. So
it's a shame. I was going to support them actually this year.
No way.
Yeah, I was going to do a few shows in London with them, but anyway, so it will happen one day.
It will happen again. It will happen again. Thank you so much, Georgia. It was so great having you on.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Okay, see you. Bye.
See you later.